40 below zero, warm breath should freeze a creature to its own skin. But not today. A silent shadow glides through the subarctic twilight. The temperature has plummeted. Yet, this gray wolf rests comfortably in the open snowpack. Thick, billowing plumes of steam rise from its muzzle in a steady rhythm. The moisture rises, hangs in the air, and then vanishes. It leaves no trace of frost on the dense winter coat. The outer guard hairs are coarse, long, and heavily oiled. They repel wetness with absolute efficiency. Beneath them lies a thick undercoat of dense, wavy wool. This inner layer traps a pocket of warm, dry air next to the skin. The wolf is a self-contained furnace. Its body heat stays sealed inside, invisible and unreachable by the biting wind. The snow beneath its body does not even melt. It is a masterclass in thermal insulation, a shield against a hostile universe that wants to drain every ounce of warmth. Suddenly, the sleeper rises. The movement is slow, deliberate, and silent. Heavy paws press into the jagged blue ice of a frozen riverbed. In this brutal cold, flesh should stick to the frozen ground. Skin should tear. Yet the wolf moves with effortless grace. The secret lies inside its foot pads. The warmth of these pads is regulated independently from the rest of the body. A highly specialized circulatory system keeps the tissue temperature just above freezing. Cold blood returning from the extremities is warmed by the incoming arterial blood in a silent exchange. This prevents ice crystals from forming in the skin. It protects the delicate pads from severe tissue damage. The wolf can run swiftly across the snowpack for hours without freezing its feet. Underneath, the hind feet are massive. While a gray wolf's body stretches between 105 and 160 centimeters in length, these hind feet measure between 220 and 250 millimeters. They act like natural snowshoes, spreading the wolf's weight across the shifting crust. No slip, no hesitation, just the soft crunch of crystallized snow under a perfectly balanced weight. This individual is not an isolated anomaly in a forgotten wilderness. It belongs to a global empire that spans the northern hemisphere. Across millions of years, adaptation has carved out a staggering footprint. Available records suggest that scientists have mapped this presence across continents. The Global Biodiversity Information Facility contains exactly 250,482 recorded occurrences of the gray wolf. These coordinate points light up entire continents, from the edge of the Pacific to the heart of Europe. They trace paths through boreal forests, across the permafrost of the subarctic tundra, and deep into cold deserts. They navigate the deep snowpack where the air smells of frozen pine needle resin and sharp ozone. They slip between the ancient pines, blending with the long shadows of the low-angle winter sun. Within this vast geography, the global wild gray wolf population remains highly resilient. Modern surveys estimate their total numbers stand between 200,000 and 250,000 individuals. They claim the high ground of the world. They are the ultimate generalists of the northern wilderness, claiming territories that would break lesser predators. They survive where the ground remains frozen for 9 months of the year. They adapt to whatever food the harsh, unforgiving landscape offers. In these frozen extremes, they do not merely survive, they dominate. This global dominance was not built overnight. To understand the stalker, we may have to travel back through deep time, long before recorded history. The fossil record reveals a lineage forged in the crucible of the ice ages. The first fossil appearance of the modern gray wolf dates back to the Middle Pleistocene. This occurred approximately 1 million to 800,000 years ago. These ancient pioneers shared the landscape with mammoths and saber-toothed cats. Many late Pleistocene wolf populations possessed even more robust skulls than the wolves of today. Their teeth were thicker, designed to crack the bones of mammoth steppe giants. Their jaw musculature was heavy and formidable. Over hundreds of thousands of generations, their morphology shifted. The skull became lighter. The snout grew more refined. The stride became longer and more efficient. They evolved from bone-crushing specialists into tireless distance runners. Yet, they never traded away their raw, crushing power for this stamina. Even as they became high-efficiency endurance machines, they retained exceptionally strong jaws capable of exerting up to 1,200 psi of bone-crushing force. The ancient ice retreated, but the wolves remained, carrying the genetic echoes of those colossal battles in every bone of their modern frames. Now, the refined modern predator stands in the boreal forest. The twilight is deepening into a cold electric blue. Electric, it raises its head to the sky. A low, resonant howl rises from its chest. The sound waves roll across the frozen wilderness, vibrating through the cold air. Under optimal conditions, these howls can be heard over an area of up to 130 square kilometers. The sound carries a complex message, a mix of identity and intent. It tells other packs of its presence, its strength, and its boundaries. But vocalization is only one tool in a highly sophisticated kit. On the ground, a silent network of scent marks coordinates the pack. The wolves leave these chemical markers roughly every 240 meters along their trails. It is a map made of scent, written on the snow crust and the bases of trees. It tells who passed, when they passed, and which direction they headed. They can negotiate territories without ever meeting face to face, avoiding conflict through a delicate, invisible diplomacy. The howl is not just a sound, it is a physical presence. It echoes off the granite cliffs and vibrates through the spruce needles. On the ground, the scent marks tell a story of movement, of families traveling in the dark, of boundaries drawn in the snow. This is the wolf we think we know, a flawless hunter, an invincible survivor of the ancient ice. It is an animal of grace, power, and coordinated strength. But the surface story is incomplete. We see the perfect coat and the massive paws. We see a global empire. We do not see the cost of this empire. Behind the stunning numbers and the vast territories lies a brutal, fragile reality. Nothing is free in the snowpack. Every square kilometer is paid for in blood. And the greatest threat to a wolf does not come from the cold. It does not come from a lack of prey. It comes from within their own ranks. A shadow is approaching. The equation is about to shift. The very tools that built this empire are about to be turned against them. The wind whistles through bare branches, carrying the scent of another pack. The air grows tense. The resting wolf stands, its ears twitching toward the distant horizon. The silence of the forest is about to break. And in deformation, we must look closer at this global empire. We must look beyond the beautiful frozen surface to find the true brutal price of survival. The next chapter of this journey reveals the violent boundaries of their world. A single step across an invisible line is a death sentence. Out here, boundaries are not drawn on maps. They are written in blood. In the deep blues of twilight, the air hangs heavy with the sharp scent of pine needle resin and ozone. A resident pack stands frozen on the frosty fringes of their range. Every muscle is coiled. Their warm breath blooms into white clouds under the polar sky. They have detected the scent of intruders. It is an ancient trigger. The response is immediate. To survive in these punishing subarctic tundra landscapes, the gray wolf relies on an extraordinarily complex sensory apparatus. Their nasal cavity contains a highly developed olfactory system. This allows them to detect the faint chemical signature of a rival pack from miles away. But knowing the enemy is near is only the first step. The true challenge is the calculus of survival. On these borders, the price of a mistake is absolute. For the gray wolf, the pack is a fortress. But the walls of this fortress are constantly under siege. Territorial disputes are not mere posturing. They are the primary driver of mortality. In certain long-term study areas, these brutal clashes account for 14 to 65% of all wolf deaths. This staggering toll shapes their entire spatial geography. To avoid these fatal confrontations, packs actively avoid hunting on the fringes of their range. They leave a buffer zone, a no-man's land where prey might find temporary safety. But when resources dwindle, the pressure builds. Then, the borders must be defended. Look across the snowy valley. The low-angle winter sun casts long, skeletal shadows. On one ridge, a resident pack stands in perfect alignment. Their hackles are raised, their ears pinned back against their skulls. Opposite them, on the facing ridge, the intruders emerge. No words are spoken. No rush to battle occurs. Instead, a low, resonant growl vibrates through the cold wind. It is a sound felt in the chest before it is heard. The crunch of frozen snow crust breaks the silence. This is a silent negotiation, backed by the promise of violence. But wolves do not only fight their own kind. Their frozen kingdom is shared with other giants. In the deep boreal forests, their paths inevitably cross with the brown bear. This is an ancient rivalry. It is built on a delicate, dangerous dance of dominance and retreat. Consider a fresh kill. A deer carcass lies on the stark white snow. The steam still rises from the meat. The pack has worked for hours to secure this meal. But then, the wind shifts. A massive shadow detaches from the pines. A brown bear approaches. The bear is a mountain of muscle and bone. Under normal circumstances, the equation is simple. Brown bears typically dominate wolf packs in disputes over carcasses. The wolves know this. They yield their food to the giant. They circle at a distance, snapping at the air. They wait for the intruder to gorge himself and leave. It is a calculated loss, but this compliance has a strict limit. When the threat moves from the carcass to the den, the calculus shifts entirely. To protect their young, wolves will fight to the death. In denning territories, wolves mostly prevail against the giant. This is not a peaceful coexistence. It is a brutal, ongoing war. Both species actively kill each other's young. A bear will raid a wolf den. Wolves will harass and kill a bear cub if given the chance. And the predation does not stop at the young. When a pack manages to kill a brown bear, they do not leave it to rot. They eat the bears they kill. This reveals a raw, opportunistic side of the predator. They are not just defenders, they are apex opportunists. To truly understand the gray wolf, we must look beyond the forest. We must travel to the remote, wave-battered coastlines of the Pacific. Here, the forest meets the sea, and the wolf transforms. These coastal wolves are physically and behaviorally distinct from their inland relatives. They are proficient swimmers. They have been observed crossing wide marine channels. Their diet reflects their watery home. While inland wolves rely on hoofed mammals, these marine specialists consume fish and marine life. They forage along the rocky shorelines at low tide. They seek out salmon, seals, and beach-cast whales. But it is their intelligence that truly shines in this harsh environment. In 2025, a field report documented a stunning display of cognitive problem-solving. A lone wolf stands on a rocky shoreline. The cold ocean water laps at its paws. Out in the surf, a buoy floats. It is attached to a submerged line. At the end of that line, deep underwater, lies a heavy crab trap. The trap contains bait. To a normal predator, this food is entirely out of reach. But this wolf understands cause and effect. It grasps the floating buoy line firmly in its jaws. Then, it begins to walk backward. Step by frozen step, it hauls the line onto the sand. It pulls until the heavy trap is dragged out of the ocean. This multi-step process suggests potential tool use. It may represent a level of intelligence once thought unique to primates. Yet, the most shocking revelation of wolf behavior comes from the dry, sun-baked landscapes of the Middle East. This is a world away from the subarctic tundra. Here, under a punishing sun, the temperature soaring, a different breed of wolf survives. These desert wolves are smaller, with shorter coats to regulate their body temperature in the intense heat. Their ears are larger, dissipating heat into the dry desert wind. They navigate a world of sandstone and dust. In this arid environment, a bizarre alliance challenges everything we know about predatory rivalries. It is an alliance between ancient, mortal enemies. In Israel, scientists filmed what appears to be an unprecedented event. A lone striped hyena was documented traveling and hunting alongside a wolf pack. This was not a brief, accidental encounter. It was a sustained, cooperative association. Normally, these two species are bitter competitors. On a one-to-one basis, a striped hyena dominates a single wolf. The hyena has a massive, crushing jaw capable of shattering bone. But the equation changes with numbers. A cooperative wolf pack can easily drive off a single hyena. Yet, in this arid wilderness, they chose peace over war. The hyena benefited from the wolves' superior tracking and hunting skills. The wolves benefited from the hyena's acute sense of smell and bone-crushing power. Together, they trotted calmly down a dusty desert trail. A striped hyena, moving in perfect harmony in the middle of a pack of desert wolves. These extraordinary behaviors reveal a creature far more complex than a simple forest predator. They are strategists, tool users, and cooperative diplomats. But as winter deepens, these remarkable adaptations are put to the ultimate test. The alliance in the desert and the beachcombing on the coast fade away when the deep snows return. Now, The survival of the pack depends on a highly coordinated, deadly ritual, and the target they must face is 10 times their size. But they cannot afford to fail. To bring down a giant, you do not need an army. The boreal forest is frozen solid under a canopy of dark pines. The cold air smells of pine needle resin and sharp ozone. In a small clearing, a massive elk stands knee, deep in the stark white snow. It weighs several hundred pounds of muscle and bone. Its sharp hooves can easily shatter a wolf's skull with a single kick. For a lone predator, attempting to tackle this giant is suicide. Even a massive pack can get in its own way during the chaos of a chase. Too many bodies in the deep snow leads to confusion. Confusion leads to injury, and in the winter, injury means death. But the stalkers of these northern woods do not rely on chaotic numbers. They rely on silent, lethal mathematics. The optimal pack size for hunting elk is exactly 4 wolves. No more, no less. With 4 individuals, the cooperation is perfect, and the calculus of risk shifts in their favor. They move through the trees like gray shadows against the stark white drifts. Their warm breath condenses into thick white clouds in the twilight. The low-angle Arctic winter sun is sinking, painting the landscape in deep blue. Ahead, the elk herd is grouped tightly together, forming a defensive wall. The wolves do not rush in with wild abandon. They watch from the tree line, they wait, they calculate. The strategy is not about brute strength, but about finding a single point of fracture. The coordinated team of 4 maneuvers through the deep snow with absolute silence. Each wolf knows its specific role in the coming play. 2 move silently to the flanks, keeping low. 1 stays behind to drive the herd. The 4th positions itself directly in the path of escape. They do not rely on brute force, but on tactical precision. Under the cold moonlight, the wolves begin their run. They work together to isolate a single elk from the safety of its herd. They target a yearling that is slightly slower than the rest. The young elk hesitates for a fraction of a second. In that moment, the trap is sprung. They cut her off. The main herd bolts, leaving her alone in the deep, punishing drifts. The chase is a test of stamina. The elk plunges desperately through the heavy drifts. Her long legs struggle to find purchase in the deep powder. The wolves glide effortlessly over the frozen crust. Their wide paws act like natural snowshoes, distributing weight perfectly. They close the distance with terrifying speed. The silence of the forest is shattered by the heavy thud of hooves and the sharp rasp of breath. A wolf lunges, snapping at her hind legs. Another cuts across her path, forcing her to make a sharp, exhausting turn. She loses her footing on the slick ice and crashes into a snowbank. The 4 wolves close in like a tightening vise. Then, silence. The price of survival has been paid. With the prey brought down, the pack's social order is laid bare. There is no democratic sharing of the prize. The breeding pair takes immediate control of the kill, asserting their dominance. They must remain strong to lead the family through the winter. They feed first on the nutrient-rich internal organs. They gorge on the heart, the liver, and the lungs. These vital organs contain the highest concentrations of fat, iron, and essential vitamins. Their muzzles are stained deep red against the stark white snowpack. Meanwhile, the subordinate yearlings watch from a respectful distance. They sit in the snow with their heads lowered, whimpering softly. They do not dare to approach. To challenge the breeding pair is to risk painful exile. The social order is absolute. Only when the leaders are satisfied will the others eat. But this winter struggle is just one phase of their existence. As the seasons shift, the frozen landscape begins to soften. The snow melts, dripping from the branches of the pines. Deep inside a south-facing earthen den, a new generation is born. The choice of location is highly deliberate. The den faces southwards to maximize warmth from the spring sunlight. It protects the fragile family from the cold spring winds. The mother has spent 62 days in gestation. Now, the dark chamber is filled with the soft sounds of nursing. The tiny pups are born blind and deaf. They are entirely dependent on their mother's warmth. They are covered in short, soft, grayish-brown fur. They look more like little rodents than apex predators. But they are the future of the pack. For the first few weeks, this dark, warm chamber is their entire universe. They navigate by touch, feeling the damp walls of the earthen home. They huddle close to their mother's belly, drinking her rich milk. Outside, the breeding male is working tirelessly. He hunts and brings food back to the den entrance, regurgitating meat for the nursing female. The yearlings guard the perimeter, keeping a sharp lookout for danger. The entire pack is unified in this single purpose. These tiny, helpless creatures are protected by the warmth of the earth and the vigilance of their family. In time, their eyes will open. Their ears will perk up to the sounds of the forest. They will learn the laws of the pack step by step. This cycle of life has endured through millions of seasons. Yet, the wolf's story has been one of extreme trials. Humans have waged war on this predator for centuries, driving them from their ancestral lands. In some regions, their survival still hangs by a thread. The gray wolf is classified as endangered on the Finnish Red List of 2019. In these strictly protected forests of Finland, their numbers are small and fragile. They must navigate a landscape fragmented by roads and human activity. Every pup that survives to adulthood is a triumph. But the story of the wolf is not one of defeat. Across the globe, the overall trend is shifting. On the global stage, this ancient predator is proving its legendary resilience. The UN Red List classifies the gray wolf's population trend as increasing. They are reclaiming lost territories, from the subarctic tundra to the cold deserts. They are adapting to a changing world with staggering success. A wolf is built to endure, living a long and battle-hardened life. The maximum lifespan of the gray wolf is 20.6 years. In the harsh wild, very few individuals ever reach this advanced age. Most succumb to injuries, starvation, or territorial conflicts long before then. But those that do survive become wise leaders. They carry the collective memory of the pack, guiding them through the hardest winters. As the twilight deepens, a magnificent wolf turns back to look directly into the camera lens. The setting sun paints the frozen landscape in brilliant gold. Its golden eyes are steady, carrying the weight of deep time. The wind whistles through its thick fur, carrying the scent of pine resin and cold snow. This is a predator built for the extremes, a survivor of the ice ages. It raises its head toward the sky, letting out a low, resonant howl. The sound travels for miles, a declaration of endurance and strength. The ancient hunter has returned to its throne, but the wilderness never stays quiet for long. Deep in the shadows of the forest, a new shadow is moving.